I'm really happy about this, and as you can see from the title and the thumbnail of this video, Las Vegas has lifted up the surge limit when it comes to Lyft and Uber. Reading the article, Uber and Lyft will be able to resume surge pricing in Las Vegas and the rest of Nevada after the governor ended a ban meant to prevent price gouging during the coronavirus pandemic. And I think what's tricky is it's kind of like the road to hell is paved with good intentions, with the idea that I think from the governor's perspective and, Nevada's perspective, maybe they were like, oh, you know what, by not doing any price gouging or having surge prices happen, we're gonna make it easier for people during the coronavirus pandemic. However, that definitely hurt a lot of drivers. Uber said that the loss of surge pricing led to a shortage of drivers because it depressed their earnings. I mean, let's be honest, you really only wanna drive during these surge hours. And if you're going to be driving during the surge hours, but not making more money because of the high surges, well, that's super, super unfortunate. So I'm really happy that Las Vegas finally did this. I love going to Vegas. I'm there all the time. And I take Ubers and Lyfts there all the time as well. And being honest, even though, yeah, for me, if let's say it's a high surge, I'd have to pay a little bit more, I'm okay with that because I understand what it's like to be a driver, of course, and only drive, let's say, on Friday or Saturday nights, or I guess in Vegas. And when things are crazy, it's pretty much every night. But I think this is important because the biggest thing for a lot of drivers is being able to drive during those surge hours when a lot of people are ordering, and it incentivizes a lot more drivers to be on the road. I've talked before that right now, at least at the time of this video, there is a massive shortage for drivers when it comes to Lyft and Uber pretty much everywhere. And I'm hoping that things like this give Uber and Lyft drivers a lot more incentives to go out and drive. Because if you're going to drive and not make that much money, well, why would you drive? Let's be honest. Especially if you look at Lyft and Uber over the years, drivers have made way less money. And the fact that Vegas and Nevada put kind of a cap on these surge prices and everything is super unfortunate. And if I was a driver in Vegas, I'd be like, you know what? I'm just going to find something else. If I can't make more money during these surge hours, then, why would I drive? Like, why not do something else that is probably going to pay more? So I think this is a very good step in the right direction. Obviously, Uber and Lyft want there to be surge prices because the more the drivers make, the more that Lyft and Uber makes. And obviously, there are so many bonuses that are going on right now with both Lyft and Uber, especially trying to, get more drivers back on the road. But being honest, at the end of the day, the number one thing is paying them more. And surge pricing has a huge component to that. It says here, the Nevada Transportation Authority said peak wait times have jumped 225% since March of 2021, with some riders waiting as long as 30 minutes. Then they said, which is kind of weird, in future emergencies, surge pricing will only be banned for 30 days. I think that's a bad idea now. I think that surge pricing, maybe there is some legitimacy to banning it or putting a cap on it. Like, this is, I think like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even longer. I remember in Miami for New Year's Eve, there was an issue where the surge pricing was so high, people were literally spending, I think it was like $600 or $700 just to get back from a bar or a nightclub. And I hate to say it, that yeah, maybe as a driver, you could probably make, thousands on a night like New Year's Eve during that time. But being on $600 or $700 just to get home, unless it's like a ridiculously long ride, that's a little absurd to me. I do think there needs to be some limit, I put that in quotation marks, when it comes to surge pricing. However, those circumstances are only far and few between. Like I said, that issue with surging in Miami for New Year's Eve, super, super unique. But for Vegas, where let's say you have to spend, instead of it being like a $10 ride, it's maybe like a $25 ride. Yeah, well, it's about 2.5x more. I feel like that happens. If you order during the surge period and it's a high peak hour, that's what happens. It's the same thing with anything else in life, is that if a lot of people are doing the same exact thing at once, and sometimes you have to spend more money, that's part of it. I mean, look at flying, right? Like if you're trying to fly out for a holiday, obviously it's going to cost a lot more money than if it's just a random other weekend. I am glad that surge pricing has come back to Nevada and especially Vegas to help out the drivers. However, I think that when it comes to future emergencies in terms of surge pricing, it should only either be I think a day or two long, a very brief snippet of time, or B, there should be almost like a financial or surge cap if that happens. For example, it's saying, you know what, we're going to cap it at 4x. That way, if let's say there is a very severe emergency or something that's going on, at least it's not like someone's in a dire strait where they're like, shoot, I want to go home, I have to go home, something's going on, but I now have to spend $500 because it's a 20x surge or whatever. That is a little ridiculous. But in most cases, a lot of these surge pricing, in my opinion, is pretty reasonable. It's never super extreme, especially when you factor in the fact that drivers are making so little money when it comes to driving for Lyft and Uber, especially now more than ever. I think it's super important to have surge pricing.